everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Zach, and here we talk about overlanding, gear, builds, DIY, all sorts of stuff related to modifying your 4Runner. It's pretty cold out here, so I'll try to speak clearly, but I'm in Minnesota here, and my four-wheel drive has unfortunately just completely gone unresponsive. So if some of you are familiar with 4Runners, there's 4Runners that have like a digital transfer case to some degree, and then there's 4Runners that have like a manual transfer case. So some of you might have like a turning dial, and then if you're like myself, I have the manual stick that you like yank around. And essentially, no matter where I shift my shifter knob, I don't have any sort of four-wheel drive. So we're gonna jump into this a little bit, and I'm gonna explain some of the things I did to troubleshoot and how I eventually got this fixed. So for starters, kind of going back, my 4Runner has 170 or so thousand miles on it. I don't remember the exact number, like 172,000. So a lot of miles on the original transfer case. And what I noticed kind of the last maybe 25,000 miles is I would kind of have to grab my shifter and yank it into 4 high. And if some of you are familiar, you kind of yank it into 4 high. You can go slow driving forward. You can go slow in reverse. You can apparently shift into 4 high going up to 55 miles per hour. Some people have theories on like how slippery the roads should be when you're using 4 high. So like if the roads are fairly clear, you shouldn't use 4 high at all. There's all kinds of different theories. I'm not exactly sure which is best, but what I try to do is either put it in neutral or put it in drive or reverse. Typically you have to roll in some capacity for it to actually engage, but at least if I go into neutral and then go into drive or reverse, you know, it's a very slow way of rolling off the brake of how to engage your actuators. I figure it's really easy on it. I may be wrong there, but that's kind of been my thinking. Anyways, when I try to shift into 4 high, when I pull that back, I'd have to kind of yank on it. Sometimes it wouldn't even work. I'd shift back into 2-wheel drive, yank again. Eventually it would go in, and I was just like, well, you know, it's a manual transfer case. Maybe it needs to be beat on a little bit in order to actually get it to actually shift into 4 high. But I don't think that was the case. Essentially, that was this transfer case indicator switch slowly going bad. So I'm going to show you a little bit what the transfer indicator switch does. There are 3 of them on my transfer case. When I was looking at the forums though, it seemed like maybe some of these transfer case designs go back to even the early 2000s 3rd gen 4Runner. So there's a lot of people doing different tasks and different, you know, approaches to getting these indicator switches off. Some people think you need to drop the whole transfer case. I think that might be the case if you have like a limited or any of those where you have a transfer case dial. But for the manual ones, at least for this switch, I didn't have to, which was awesome. So I'm going to show you how I did that in just a few minutes. But what I want to, you know, lastly kind of talk about is then my 4-wheel drive completely went out. So when I would shift into 4 high, it wouldn't do anything. When I would shift into neutral or try to go into 4 low, wouldn't do anything. Basically nothing 4-wheel drive related would even respond. And so some of the things that I think are important here is this switch that I replaced is on the passenger side. There's 2 on one side, 1 on the other. This is on the side where there's only 1. And as far as I understand, this is the first switch to engage a bunch of other things. So a lot of people, what they do is when they shift, they'll get a 4 high blinking or a 4-wheel drive activating blinking, but they won't actually feel their tires grip and kind of actually go into 4-wheel drive. When that sort of thing happens, that's likely a failure of an actuator at one of your differentials, because essentially the vehicle's recognizing you're trying to shift into 4 high, which is the indicator switch I'm replacing, but your vehicle is not, you know, engaging the front or the rear. So that would be an actuator at one of those locations. In my situation, it doesn't even know I'm going into 4-wheel drive, and that's why this switch is the one I chose to replace first. So if this didn't fix it, I was gonna have to start going down the line of that chain reaction of things. And then shifting into 4 low and maybe some other things I think are related to the other 2 indicator switches, but I didn't really do enough research that far to kind of figure out what those 2 do. And I also think removing those might be a different approach. So I'm not gonna really talk on those because I don't feel like I really did the research to actually talk about that stuff. But I think the approach might be somewhat in the same vein as to what I'm doing. So, all right, well, let's jump over to the top-down camera. I'm gonna briefly show you what this indicator switch is. I'm gonna show you the wrapper of the part number that I ordered. Then we'll get the switch installed, and I'll show you kind of at the end what I was able to do. And spoiler alert, it fixed it. And also, I don't have to yank it. It really is a gentle pull, and it initially sort of engages. So if anywhere along the line of this reaction you feel like you're really yanking around your shifter, maybe one of your other indicator switches is going bad as well. Maybe something to think about. Okay, let's jump over to the top-down camera. We're gonna do a little bit of a breakdown here. This is the old switch. So this is actually kind of top-down, that is a little bit fake, but I wanna show you on the old switch what's going on, and it's a little bit harder to test this you know, at the bench when it's underneath the vehicle. So figured I'd take this out and show you. I could have shown on the new switch, but it is what it is. Okay, so what we do is set your ohm meter to the continuity test. So that means it'll just beep when it's essentially a short circuit. And if we do that, it's not gonna beep because in theory it's not depressed. So, but no matter how much we push this, it's not gonna beep. And what essentially happens is a wire comes in one side and a wire goes out the other. And when you shift, it pushes this ball down and it allows current to flow through these wires, and it essentially turns on a function on the vehicle. So on a working switch, when you press this down, it would beep and it completes the circuit. So right now it's open circuit. When you press this down, it will be closed circuit, or it might be vice versa. I don't exactly remember, but I think once you press it down, that allows current to flow. When it's not pressed down, it's an open circuit, which essentially means nothing is going to engage, turn on, etc., because it's an open circuit and current can't flow. So there you go. There you have it. Very simple system. But we also kind of like simple systems because they typically don't fail. So 172,000 miles on this one. I don't know if this is the exact part number, but the part number of the new one I ordered is this, which is 842235110. So the next thing I want to quick mention is if you are going to try and remove this, you're going to realize that there's basically zero space for working around the transfer case up there. And so I used two tools that were pretty handy here. I used my pivoting head Icon half-inch drive ratchet. You don't need to use a pivoting head, I don't think, but it definitely doesn't hurt anything because that space is really hard to work in. And you really don't have space to actually like loosen or swing. So what I ended up doing was I would flick this back and forth so I could just kind of wiggle around how I needed to. It just so happens that 1 1/16 is actually almost a dead-on match to 27 millimeters. So this is an SAE Crowfoot, but it's very similar to 27 millimeters. This, I believe, on paper is spec'd at 27 millimeters, but 27 millimeters is stocked almost in no stores, and I wanted to do this quickly, but I'll link on Amazon a couple of different options that you could order so that you have one of these little crow feet when you're gonna do this project. That's about all you need to know. Let's jump out to the vehicle and let's get this switch installed. All right, so we're under the vehicle here. Here's the drive shaft going backward. Here is our transfer case. Up on this side is where the indicator switch is that we want to switch out. So there's our switch. So as you can imagine, it's pretty hard to access that. The skid plate right here doesn't make it any easier. So if you're going to break your four-wheel drive or have this switch go out, I'd recommend you have it break before you put your skid plate on. But this is pretty hard to film. I'm going to try and get my wrench up into that space. What the claw foot is going to let me do is we got to kind of come up through here, come back at it, and turn. So it's not going to be easy, but hopefully we can get it done. Let's try it. Okay, so there you go. I've got this pivoting Icon half-inch drive wrench that I used, and you're supposed to put these on with like 27 foot-pounds of torque, so it's really tricky, but using this Crowfoot I was able to break it free, and it's kind of like a pull, pop, and then it popped free. Now it's loose. I just got to reach up there and loosen it by hand, and then we'll put the new one in. Okay, well, I think I've got it tightened down enough. It's really hard to know with this crow's foot. It's the first time I've really used them, and so I don't really know what 25 pounds feels like at these weird angles. But what we're gonna do here is plug in the remainder of the harness. You can see it right there, like hooks in up there on the transfer case. And then we'll test this out and see if it's fixed. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, I managed to get everything hooked back together. Some satisfying clicks. There is the little switch we put in. I can come back in and tighten that a little if I need to. We're gonna jump up to the vehicle now and test it out, see if it'll switch or at least blink on the dash. And boy, do I hope it does. All right, let's check it out. So basically, originally, I never got any light or anything that would come on when I would shift into any of these. Originally, when I first got the 4Runner, sometimes I'd have to really jam it back to actually get four-wheel drive to engage. So I guess the sensitivity was going down. If you feel like you've got to jam yours into four-wheel drive to actually get it to engage, there's a good chance your switch is going, and I would recommend looking into fixing it before it's just completely gone. Hey, it's back. Amazing. Okay, so now if I just go into neutral and shift, it goes away. So, all right, well, that's awesome. Looks like my four-wheel drive's back, and this install was a little bit painful, but at least I didn't have to drop my transfer case. All right, well, that's gonna be a wrap for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I really wanted to get this video out there because for some reason this winter has been a less snowy winter for a lot of the states. Obviously, the mountains seems to always get plenty of snow, but maybe some of you out there are just discovering now that your four-wheel drive is not working, and that's unfortunate. I felt like I didn't see a lot of things out there talking about kind of how to troubleshoot this, so that's why I tried to provide some of that information. Feel free to drop comments or questions down in the description. Maybe I can give you any sort of pointer or a link to a forum or something that I found useful in trying to troubleshoot this. But yeah, this is kind of how I was able to get mine fixed. Some of you out there that maybe don't use your four-wheel drive that often, or your 4Runner is completely stock, maybe this will just help you because you realized I use my four-wheel drive only in the winter and I just tried to use it and it's broken. So maybe this will help you get a little bit of direction, and or it'll help you realize that you don't want to mess with it and you got to take it to the dealer or something. But at any rate, I figured this might be kind of handy and I wanted to show what I had to do. So went and bought an OEM part. Obviously, there's up for discussion as to whether this should be an OEM part or not. It's a very simple part. So I would tend to think that maybe you could run something aftermarket, because I don't know how much OEM parts are really like reinventing some sort of fancy system here. This seems to be incredibly simple, but I went with an OEM part because I found one online that was a pretty good deal. So make sure you buy the OEM part and the washer that slides over it. That's a nice little crush washer that's going to help that seal off. Remember, this is pushing into your transfer case, so there's going to be like transfer case oils that get on that little ball at the end that gets pressed in, and then that crush washer will help to be your sealant so that you don't have your transfer case leaking around that switch. So, all right, hopefully that was helpful for you. And if you like this sort of content or you like what I'm doing, go check out some of the other stuff on my channel. Please consider subscribing and give this video a like if it brought you any sort of value, because it helps me out, helps me be able to make more content like this. I'm still planning to make lots of content in 2024. I took off a little break for the holidays and just to spend some time with my family, and also just take a little bit of a break from social media since I've been kind of going strong about a video a week for like 3 years now. So every now and then I need a little break, but we're back to it, and hopefully we'll be doing, about a video every week or more. So thank you so much for all your ongoing support. We crossed 25,000 subscribers just a little bit ago as well. We're almost to 20,000 followers on Instagram. It's really fun to see the channel continue to grow, and I love reading all the comments that you guys leave, kind of sharing your experiences with watching my content. So it means a lot, helps me be able to, feel motivated and feel like I'm helping out people through making my content. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in the next video.